Welcome back to Esoteric Thoughts, L M Dumizulu.
Thank you.
There is a tendency to focus on Christianity and its effect on numerous cultures and civilizations since its inception. Today, we will focus on Islam and its impact and role in Africa. You recently have been speaking on this topic that has caused a lot of discussion as Islam is often overlooked. As we discuss the journey of Islam in Africa, can you talk to us about the Arab slave trade and for how long it lasted?
Yeah, thank you very much. From scholars and many other researchers, it is clear that they state that Islam started to trade in slavery and conquest of other lands in 650 AD. For us, as melanin-dominant human beings, up to today, they are still enslaving us and causing a lot of other subtle colonization tactics, as well as many other social and cultural changes within our communities in Africa and in the diaspora. So it's 1,400 years that it has been going on. It's still going on in Libya, in Mauritania, in Sudan, and many other places. You can also refer to Boko Haram in Nigeria with the kidnapping of 200 girls. They have not yet been found. Maybe they were found and they were abused. Recently in Southern Africa, in Mozambique, we had to have the Rwandese army come and interfere and drive out the Islamists in Cabo Delgado who were attacking and destroying villages. So it's still going on. It has not stopped, but it is camouflaged under various civil as well as terrorists and terror tactics.
So why do you think that when we think of slavery, we tend to think of the Christian-based slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, rather than the Arab slave trade?
I think it is something to do with the ability by the Islamic world to market itself as a religion of peace, yet it is a religion of pieces. And also the Muslims or the jihadists have a tendency of always highlighting the political and military adventures of the Western world. So people who are coming out of colonization would find sympathy with people that castigate their former colonial masters. So it's an issue of marketing and an issue of pedagogy. In other words, it has not been taught. But when I was in primary and secondary school, I learned about Islamic slave trade, but not to the extent like what I now know of the Atlantic slave trade. So it's a marketing issue and educational issue, which is well crafted and hidden by the Arabic world.
And from doing some research on the Arabic slave trade, is it a true fact that they practiced castration of black male slaves?
Oh, well, yes, that's a fact. And to be fair, they did not only enslave black people, they also enslaved other Europeans in Eastern Europe. And but the numbers, it's the numbers game. It's and the period they started slave trade 650 to up to today is or involves black people or melanin dominant human beings. But the problem is when you go in the Islamic world, you don't find a lot of black families or mulattoes or people that look like black. The question is what happened? There are many scholars that have proved that there have been a castration of black males. But what they did was, when they castrated black males, they actually cut off, they called it the leveling the abdomen. And when they capture Europeans, they would remove the balls only. So when you say leveling the abdomen, you can look for images and pictures of that. I have with them on some of my videos. They cut off everything, and you are left only with the little hole for urine and all stuff like that. So it's very, very, very pathetic and very, very sadistic if you look at it. Now, the reason why you cannot find black families, or like in America where you find mulattoes and other people of mixed ancestry, that's the reason. What happened now was these people became eunuchs, and most of them were given roles to play, even in Mecca itself and in temples, because they were not sexually active. So they were not a threat to any other girls or any other, or the wives of the leaders or imams. So that's the reason, and why they castrated them. And the women were taken into concubinage. It's very straightforward and clear, and it's not debatable. No scholar will stand up to debate that, because it's well documented, even within their writings themselves. Yes.
So very similarly to the Bible, does the Quran mention the acceptance of having slaves?
Yes, yes. I'll just go through and give you the surahs, which they can read in the Quran. The first and foremost, they say if you don't believe in their religion, they're non-believer, you are either killed, or you convert, or you pay what they call jizya, which is a fee that you pay for being a non-believer. So if you go to Surah 2:177, they teach how slaves are to be integrated in the community or in the society. And Surah 23:5 and 6, 70, 29, and the 3 teaches that the slave-owning man has the rights to what he owns, sexual rights to what he owns. So if he owns slaves, he has a sexual right to that slave. And the traditional laws allowed them to own slaves, because they would conquer tribes or conquer a certain people, and these were part of the loot. Just like in the Bible, in the Torah, same, no difference, same thing. The difference would be in the language used and in the freeing of the slaves, because in Islam, you could free yourself by working harder and free yourself earlier, but you wouldn't. Where would you go? Because your tribe has already been conquered, your roots have already been uprooted and have been replanted. Then you convert. Obviously, after a generation, you convert and you become one of them. So that's the slave is there. I've given the chapters and the verses. It's straightforward.
Through the Arabic enslavement of Africans, did this facilitate the Islamic conversion of Africans?
Yes, that's. I would like to highlight a book here. I think you might be able to see this one, "The Legacy of Arab Islam in Africa." This is rich with that kind of information, because he goes in. John Alembila Azuma goes into the details of the two-pronged approach that was used. That's why we have people like Mansa Musa, reputed to be the richest, who converted to Islam. So Islam calls itself a religion of peace, but actually it is a religion of pieces. It destroys and rebuilds. When they say peace, you have all been converted to it. Now you live in peace, you follow the Sharia and stuff like that. So what they did, our ancestors accepted a lot of people, and they accepted them to come and settle amongst them, because they were trading and the travelers, and they were not discriminated. They would practice their religion. And when they start to practice their religion and wearing their uniform and do their stuff and trade and so forth, some of our brothers started to convert to them in peace, loving and thinking, this is good, this is good. And so that is why you will find that the brand of Islam you find in Ghana and in Malawi is totally different from the one you find in Nigeria, northern Nigeria, where you have the radicals or jihadists, because some of them were very accommodating, and they live, when they follow certain tenets in the Quran, you can live a very peaceful life. But when you look at it holistically, you find the dichotomy of violence, which is jihad, which is difficult for any Muslim to define, although they define it at 4 levels. But the jihadist is that you should convert. If you don't convert, you are killed or you become a slave. So that's how they destroy the whole of Africa. You look at Africa today, the struggles we have in Africa, and the ignorance that so-called Middle East is part of Africa stems from the Quran and from the Muslims. So all those countries talk about Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, Qatar, all those are African countries. Right up to Morocco, Algeria, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, those are former African countries. And today, when you look at them, they've got different groups of people. And when we say these things, they don't want us to say that. They want us to just keep quiet and say, oh, it's okay. And unfortunately, they're smart enough. They have an Arab League, and they also belong to the African Union. And the African Union members are not allowed to attend the Arab League meetings. And the Arab League members are allowed to attend the African Union meetings. So the whole infrastructure, political, economic, technological, socially, religious, is tilted to disadvantage us. That's how they have done it, and that's how they are doing it. And our leaders are so blind to it. They even allow the rotation of the presidents of African Union even to be held by these techs. They are techs. They are not the real Arabs. I'm going to another topic here. They are not the original ones. They are invaders. They came from Turkey. Seljuk Turks came from north there near the Caucasus Mountain.
Similarly to Judaism that started off as polytheistic, was Islam also a polytheistic religion?
It is still polytheistic. They might tell you that they are monotheistic. They are still polytheistic. I'll give you few examples. You castigate the prophet, what happens to you? They put a fatwa on you. You go to Mecca, there is a place they reverence. They call it the Black Stone or the Kaaba. That's idolatry for me. When they pray, they face Mecca. That's idolatry for me. So it's still polytheistic. They might tell you that they believe in one creator, but their practice, in actually daily practice, is very, very polytheistic. They pray 5 times a day. What's 5? Why not 3? Why not 2? Why not 7? Why insist that you should pray 5 times a day? That's polytheistic. So, because if you are a monotheist, you don't have to face a certain direction to pray. You don't have to have a stone or something that you reverence. You reverence, unless if your monotheism is centered on that stone, then well and good. But if it is for a superior spiritual entity, you cannot represent a spirit by a stone or by direction or by time, because it transcends that. So they are polytheistic in real terms. But in practice and in theory and in belief and so forth, they, like the Hebrews, they believe that they are monotheists. They are not. I am willing to stand on my feet and debate anyone from the Islamic group or Muslims who says he's a polytheist. I'll go in his Quran and point to him that it is impossible for him to be a monotheist. He is polytheistic. For example, if you know the satanic verses, the book, the satanic verses, there is a surah that explains that it is not clear that they could be actually monotheists. Their logo is the half moon, and you know they have got a logo. If you are a monotheist, you don't have a logo. You don't have 2 logos. You might have one logo or one symbol, yes. But if you start to have the Kaaba, you have the Quran as a holy book, which fell from heaven, which is holy. Then you have Mecca as the holy city. Then you have got Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa temple. Then you have got the prophet. And then you have got jihad movements. And then you have to force people to believe in you and not allow the creator, your creator, to cause people themselves on their own to subsume their free will. Then what are you? You can't tell me a monotheist. The only monotheists are Bantus or melanin dominant humans, because we do not ignore some of the gifts that we have on earth, and we reverence them. We reverence waters, we reverence trees, we reverence our ancestors, and yet at the same time, when we end everything, we say to the one whom we do not know, who is above everything. So that we do not mince around. So these are tools that we were given. We don't worship them, but they are tools that we are given. It's like food. We eat food, but we do not worship it. We eat it. We drink water. So it's the same in the spiritual realm. The Creator gave us the signs in the heavens, things on the earth to help us in our spirituality. And we don't go around and say, these are not good, you don't worship him, like what they try to do, that they are monotheism. And they are monotheists. Their confusion of monotheism comes from where they took the source from us. They then started to try to remove the ancestors and stand on their own and thinking that we are worshiping idols. We don't worship idols. We know that what an idol is, but it's just like our phones, our radios, they are tools in the spiritual realm. So if you don't understand how to use a cell phone, how to use a computer, and you see someone using it and enjoying it, you might think he worships. No, he's benefiting. That's how we understand our religious world. And for them, it's very double standard. In practice, they practice polytheism. In theory, they speak about one creator and so forth, but they are not like that. Don't even. I've heard a video that explains that clearly. I can share it if you want.
In terms of how closely Islam is related to Christianity, in Islam, what's their belief in terms of the virgin birth of Jesus?
Well, they believe in the virgin birth. Yeah. But this is an interesting point that we have always had with many of them, because they believe in the virgin birth, but they don't believe in the Trinity, and they believe that Jesus was divine. They believe he was a prophet, but he was a prophet who was conceived miraculously and born miraculously. So they state the 4 types of creation of men and stuff like that. But the confusion comes from a very simple historical fact. The Isaiah 7, verse 14, the popular verse that is quoted for the virgin birth. The word used for virgin there is found in the Septuagint. It's not virgin, it's a young woman of marriageable age. So Isaiah was told to go to this young woman and bear a child and name the child the king. It happened, the prophet was fulfilled within 65 years. The prophet gave birth and the son was born, and he became Hezekiah, the king, found in the Bible. And now we find the prophet and we find the scholars in Islam buying into the Septuagint mistranslation. But I'm making it simpler, but it's more complicated than that, because by the time Islam came into the forum, started to come up, there was already an argument within the Christian scholars. There were Christians following what is known as diphasatic believers and monophasatic believers. The diphasatic believe that Jesus had 2 natures, divine and non-divine, which is human. The monophasatic believe that Jesus was just spiritual. So the debate went on, and then the argument was, what died on the cross if he was a diphasatic? And that's why you find now Islam saying to them that he died because they wanted to say Jesus made it appear that he did not die, they substituted him. So those arguments were already occurring within the Christianity. And that's when Islam came up, and it took the monophasatic Coptic aspects. And these monophasatic and diphasatic, they go back 300 BC at the formation of Serapis, who was given to the Ptolemies by our ancestors. And again, I go a step back. All religions, when you say spiritual, in a religious sense, you are speaking of ancestor. You can never say spiritual without speaking of your ancestor, because you are a biological entity created by dead people who are already dead today, but their genes are in you. So when we say ancestor reverence, we are reverencing people that are already dead, but we believe gave us birth. The proof that they were there is us. So that's why our ancestor worship is so important and a cardinal to our understanding and knowledge of the Creator, because without ancestry, you have no connection to the Creator. Because then we say our ancestors existed because they were created by a creator. So our ancestors become our creators in a physical sense, as well as spiritual sense when they pass on. So the Greeks, when they conquered our ancestors, wanted to be incorporated into the esoteric system or belief, like what you have there on your esoteric thoughts. So they wanted the esoteric thoughts to be there, to have them, because they were barbarians, they didn't have that. And so they forced our ancestors to make a divinity for them, and they make the divinity based on Ausari, so-called Osiris, and the bull, Apis. And then they combined them and they said, this is yours. But there was already a problem, because at that time, the Amen-based priests didn't want to do that. But the other priests that they said they sold out and said, no, let's just have it and have peace, because then they wanted to have temples, they wanted to have their worship. And then the Greeks took this and they kept it and they went on. And when the Romans came, they incorporated that and started to use it. And at the Nicene Council, it was already started to agree and said, this is what we are going to have. Jesus is now our Osiris, is now our ancestor. And then they took the Trinity and they have Jesus, the Father, and they initially had Mary there. But then they said, no, the Synod of Chalcedon removed Mary and they put the Holy Spirit. And the Theotokos controversy started, because there were others that say Mary should be incorporated. But this was male-driven, now taken by males, up to what we have now at the Holy See, the papacy, where you have only male cardinals. That's the origin. So that was the environment in which Muhammad rose up with those arguments. And then he adopted the monophysitic version. And because he adopted the monophysitic version, that there's only one God, therefore Jesus was a spirit or a prophet, therefore he could not have died on the cross, but God substituted him. So that's the whole story. There's a lot of literature about it. We give it and we share a lot about it. So I've given a very long explanation, but it has fundamentals that anyone can go dig out and find. It's very clear, straightforward. There's a book by Dr. Walter Williams, The Historical Origins of Islam. By that book, it explains exactly step by step how all these monophysitic, diphysitic fed in or became the source for the version of Jesus who is found in the Quran or believed by the Muslims.
In watching quite a few of your videos and of some of the research you've done, can you talk to us a bit about the racist views that are held within Islam, both historically and currently?
Yes, there is when you read in the Quran, the early stages of the Prophet, he actually was against racism. But after he had gone and so forth, there were scholars that rose up. Ibn al-Khaldun is one of them. And there are many scholars. They wrote a lot of disparaging remarks concerning our black skin. And they said we are worse than apes because monkeys and baboons can be trained. He said we cannot be trained. We are so dumb. And it happened that it's written down and it's there. In my video, Islam is not a natural African religion. I give the evidence and the proof of two scholars. The Ayatollah, also a grand Ayatollah during that time, said the same thing about our skin color and hate and dislike. So it's there. There is no two ways about it. The racism that is practiced now is based on the teachings of the scholars. Whereas sometimes when you go into the Quran, you may not be able to find exact teachings. But we are saying the pervasiveness of racism in Islam today. Why does they pretend that they can all remove the shoes and sit down on the carpet in Makkah or other holy places? It's there, it exists because of the enslavement. And if we were equal, they would never have enslaved us. and they would never have forced conversions on us. They would never be attacking us and seeing us as we are. They still are racist today if you go into the in the Middle East, so-called Middle East.
One of the arguments that I hear in many of the discussion groups that I am in is that the Nation of Islam is a completely different sect of Islam. Can you talk to us about the origins of the Nation of Islam?
Yes, it was started by someone known as Farad Muhammad, and the sad thing about it, for those that support it, if you look at his picture, you won't go very far about the origin of this. Now, if you read a little bit about him, you also discover that he is reputed to have come from Saudi Arabia within his books. So look, it's straightforward. Now, I want to make a very significant comment. When you look at the people or leaders that came out of the black Muslims, we got prominent people, Malcolm X, the messenger, Elijah Muhammad, and we've got the boxer, one of popular boxers, Muhammad Ali. These people were very pro-black. They were nationalists in terms of loving their race. But it's unfortunate that I never heard them criticize the 1,400 years of Islamic slave trade of black people. From Mozambique, Zanzibar, Pemba, Bagamoyo, Kenya, across the Red Sea, and many other millions across the Sahara Desert, right into India, which is part of Africa. They never criticize that. But they are very quick and very, very loud in criticizing the Atlantic slave trade, which is fair. They should do that. But it should balance, it should be balanced. I'm yet to see and to hear what they say, including the current leader. He has never said anything about it. Even the Libyan slave trade that is happening today. To this, in our generation, we are witnessing it. And in 50, 40 years' time, in 100 years' time, there will be scholars like you and me discussing it about Libya. We have to condemn it. Straightforward, doesn't matter. On my last note, I want to highlight that it's not only that it is the white Arabs of Turkish origin that engage in slave trade. We had our own brothers and sisters who were prominent. We've got Tipo Tip, who built an empire across the Congo, right into Tanzania, who traded in slaves, his own brothers, and bought them. It's unfortunate. It's happening today. It will happen in future, but we ought to highlight that we should highlight this, that our own brothers, kith and kin, engaged in it. Why? Because their brains was converted to think that since they accepted the Quran and Muhammad and the Hadiths and the culture, now they are superior than the ones who did not. They're using scriptures, they are surahs like Surah 2:191 that says, kill the unbeliever, find them everywhere and kill them, or let them pay jizya, or put them under the sword or in slavery. That's unfortunate. So Islam, the Nation of Islam, while they've got very positive pro-African, pro-black doctrines or speeches or actions, they don't condemn the root or the foundation where they stand on.
L M Dumizulu, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right.